Now, a big question for a lot of projects is how much do we focus on accessibility? That is, how much development time do we dedicate to making sure that at least some people on the team are keeping accessibility needs in mind? And there are different answers to this question depending on the kind of project that you're working with. So, in the United States, there are two different standards that people work against for accessibility. One is called Section 508, and if you work for the federal government or build websites for anybody in the government, the projects need to be compatible with Section 508. In a huge part of the rest of the world, including Australia, Canada, France, Germany, Japan, and New Zealand, governmental websites have to follow a different standard called the WCAG, which stands for Web Content Accessibility Guidelines. And in fact, the US government is working on standardizing against this as well. There's a huge overlap between the two standards. Now, Section 508 relates not just to websites, but also to desktop applications or any interactive technology like kiosks, whereas the WCAG relates only to websites and web applications. Now, what happens if you're building a site for commercial purposes or for your own personal project? Being aware of accessibility guidelines takes time, and you may find yourself having to go through extra steps in order to make your project accessible. So what's the incentive to abide by these guidelines, even if they're not necessarily law? Well, the first is that there are legal precedences of individuals suing companies that haven't made their websites accessible, and they've sued successfully. These are private companies, so even though they're not regulated the same way that federal government websites are, there's still some legal responsibility to make businesses accessible, and web businesses are no different. Now, there aren't a ton of these examples yet, and I don't mention this to kind of instill fear, but it's something that can be a useful argument when trying to write in a budget for accessibility in a proposal to a business. Sometimes it's hard for companies to justify the extra time that goes into accessibility simply for egalitarian reasons. So that's something to keep in your back pocket. That said, there's also a business case for it too, which is that, at least in the US, about 1 in 5 people have a disability of some kind. Now, not all of these disabilities are going to affect that person's use of the web, but a portion of those are. And if you're able to provide a solid experience, even for those that have trouble using the web in a conventional way, that can be a boost to your user base. And this can also be used as an argument to slot out some extra time for accessibility in a project.